Welcome. Take a moment, just a moment, to settle where you are. Let the weight of the day loosen from your shoulders, from the small muscles behind your eyes, from the quiet places along your jaw. There is nothing you need to carry into this story, nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to solve. Let your breath find its own slower rhythm, in and out, in and out. Let the pillow hold your head. Let the mattress hold the pillow. Let the floor hold the bed. Let the earth hold the floor. Everything beneath you is already doing its work. You do not have to hold anything up. Tonight, we are going to a marina. Not a marina of racing boats or busy engines, but a quiet, sheltered place beneath warm, shallow water, a grotto where old submersibles have come to rest. They are retired, these little vessels. They have finished their work of looking at the deep, and now they are becoming part of the sea themselves, slowly, patiently, with no hurry at all. There are people who tend them, not to fix them, not to make them new, only to accompany them as they change. They are called rust gentlers, and their whole craft is patience. They coax the old iron into blooming into soft mineral colors, ochres and verdigris and pale coppery rose. They do not scrape. They do not polish. They only sit with what is happening and help it happen kindly. Tonight, you will follow one of these rust gentlers on her evening round. Her name is Ova. She is unhurried. She is content. She has no destination that cannot wait. And as you follow her, you will hear the small sounds of the marina and see the soft light through the water and smell the brine and warm copper of a place that has learned to grow old without complaint. If your body wants to sink deeper into where it rests, let it. If your eyes want to close, let them close. You do not need to picture anything perfectly. You do not need to follow every word. The story will carry itself, and you will drift where you drift. Let us begin. Let us go down gently into the ochre light. The path to the marina begins on a set of low stone steps that curve down through a break in the cliff. The stone is warm from the long afternoon sun and worn smooth by decades of soft footfalls. Wildflowers grow between the cracks, and small, pale butterflies rest on their leaves, opening and closing their wings in slow, considered blinks. At the bottom of the steps, the world changes. The cliff opens into a wide, sheltered grotto, roofed by a natural arch of pale limestone. Inside, the water is shallow and calm, and the color of steeped tea in a clear cup. That same warm amber, that same slow depth of light. Sunshafts fall in through openings in the rock above, wavering and rippling as they touch the water, and painting bright, shifting ovals across everything below. The air smells of brine, not sharp, not salty in the way that stings. It is the older, softer brine of a bay that has been protected for a long time. It smells of warm, wet stone and of wood that has been oiled every season for generations, and, underneath everything, of warm copper, that gentle mineral note that you find near old bells and old coins and old wire, kept somewhere out of the wind. Wooden catwalks thread through the grotto like a low, calm net. They are built on posts that reach down into the water, and their planks are silvered by years of sun and mist. Ropes coiled at the corners, brass cleats set into the wood, a rail of smoothed timber worn dark by many patient hands. The catwalks do not go anywhere in a hurry. They lead from mooring to mooring, from lantern to lantern, from one quiet task to the next, and moored beneath the catwalks, held in the amber water, are the submersibles. 11 of them, small, round-bellied vessels, each about the size of a garden shed, each painted long ago in a shade of ochre, some warmer, some paler, some almost pink, some almost the color of a ripe pear. The paint is soft now. It has been softened by seawater and by time and by the slow companionship of the keepers. Where the paint has thinned, rust has come up in its place. But it is not the rust of neglect. It is rust that has been listened to and shaped and encouraged into flowers of fairest orange and deep sienna and pale mineral bloom. Each submersible has a name painted in the same ochre along its round little side. The names are simple: Marigold, Pumice, Almond, Kelp, Weathervane, Sable, Copperleaf, Millet, Owl, Fern, Bee. They're the names of small, patient things. They fit these small, patient vessels. Along the rim of each hull, a copper mesh cradle has been fitted, held in place by soft cords. The cradles catch the flakes of paint and rust that fall away, so that nothing is lost. The flakes are gathered every few days and mixed with linseed oil and used again in the ochre paints that name the newest arrivals. Nothing is thrown out here. Nothing is discarded. Everything folds slowly back into the next quiet thing. A mooring bell hangs beneath the surface of the water at the center of the grotto, tethered from a bronze frame above. When the current moves, and it moves only a little, only in slow, soft breaths, the bell touches its clapper and gives a hollow bong that carries through the water in a round, unhurried tone. It is not a bell that calls anyone. It is only a bell that keeps company with the tide. If you listen closely, beneath the bell, beneath the lap of water on wood, you can hear the tiny, polite tick of shrimp against metal. They live inside the old ballast tanks and behind the bronze rivets, and they carry on their small business with a soft ceramic sound. Tick, 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 like the Marina's own quiet clock, counting nothing in particular. The light continues to wobble across the curved hulls, drawing shining nets of gold across the ochre paint, catching in the copper mesh cradles, glinting on the brass rings of the portholes. It is the kind of light that makes you forget what time it is. It is the kind of light that suggests that time, here, might not matter at all. At the far end of the catwalk, a small wooden hut stands on stilts above the water. Its shutters are open. From within, you can see the soft green glow of glass jars filled with algae lined up on a shelf. This is where Ova prepares for her evening round. She steps out now, onto the catwalk. She is a small, sturdy woman with sun-lightened hair braided into a single soft rope down her back. She wears loose linen trousers and a canvas apron with many pockets, and her feet are bare because the wood of the catwalk is warm and clean. In one hand, she carries a wide woven basket. In the other, she carries a badger hair mop with a long, pale handle. She pauses at the top of the catwalk and looks out across the marina. She takes a slow breath in through her nose. She lets it out through her mouth. Then she begins her round. Her first mooring is the Marigold, the oldest of the submersibles, the one nearest the hut. Marigold is a soft, warm ochre, the color of turmeric and butter, and her hull is broad and rounded and dappled with mineral bloom. A single porthole faces up toward the surface, its brass ring polished only by hands, and above her, a low observation bubble rises just above the water, glass fogged with age, catching the last light of the day. Ova kneels on the catwalk beside Marigold. She sets down her basket. She dips her fingers into the water and touches the copper mesh cradle just below the waterline. She lifts it slowly and finds within it a small handful of flakes, some tiny curls of old paint, some ferrous petals of rust, one small pearl of verdigris. She tips them into a compartment in her basket and lowers the cradle back into place. Then she takes up the badger hair mop. The bristles are soft as a rabbit's underbelly, dense and pale, and she dips them in the water and then sets them against Marigold's hull. She moves the mop slowly, in long, unhurried strokes, gathering barnacle rosettes and small clusters of tube worms into gentle whirls, brushing them into shapes they will keep for a while, and then reshape on their own. Where the rust has begun to bloom, she strokes it gently in the direction it has chosen to grow, and it settles more deeply into its color. She is not cleaning. She is combing. She is doing for the submersible what one might do for the coat of a very old, very patient dog. Marigold, for her part, does what she has learned to do best, which is to be still and to receive the attention and to continue at her own pace, becoming a small reef. When Ova has finished with Marigold's hull, she reaches into her basket and takes out a small clay jar with a cork lid. Inside, when she lifts the cork, is a slurry of iron-loving algae, a rich green in the amber light, faintly glowing where a sun shaft catches it. She unscrews the porthole's outer cover. It is only pressed on, only held by a soft turn of the wrist, and lowers the jar through into the flooded chamber within. The jar sinks slowly, releasing a soft green cloud that will settle over the interior ribs of the submersible and feed on the iron that wants to be fed on. Ova replaces the cover. She sits back on her heels. She listens. The hollow bong of the mooring bell reaches her, muted through the wood. The polite tick of shrimp against the bronze rivets sounds like small clocks with no hands. Somewhere, a rope creaks against a wet cleat, and the sound is soft and low. Sunshafts move slowly across Marigold's curved hull, and Ova watches them without hurry. Then she rises. She takes up her basket. She takes up her mop. She walks along the catwalk toward the next mooring, toward pumice, whose hull is the color of dry riverbed clay, pale and gray warm, and whose rust blooms into cool coppery pinks along her ballast fins. The catwalk turns gently as it goes. It bends where the old grotto floor bends beneath the water. In some places, the planks are only a hand's breadth above the surface. In others, they rise a little higher, on posts wrapped in soft green weed. Ova walks in the middle of the planks with easy feet, and her braid sways behind her, and the light through the arch above wobbles and settles and wobbles again. At pumice, she kneels again. She lifts the copper mesh cradle, and the flakes that fall into her basket are cooler in tone. The pale rose of oxidized copper, mixed with the buff of pumice's dust-colored paint. She strokes the badger hair mop along pumice's flank and finds a small colony of tiny sea snails clustered where the paint has grown thin. She brushes around them, not through them, and lets them keep their quiet corner. Pumice's porthole faces sideways instead of up, and Ova has to lie on her belly on the catwalk to reach it. She does this with no complaint, no sigh. She simply lies down. She stretches her arm through the opening and settles a jar of algae inside and watches the green cloud drift down into the round belly of the sub. Then she lies still for a moment, cheek pressed to the sun-warmed plank, and lets herself listen through the wood. Through the wood, she can hear the water in a different way. It sounds thicker, slower. The bong of the bell reaches her through the planks as a soft, rolling note, more felt than heard. She smiles a small, unhurried smile and lifts herself back up and moves on. At Almond, whose hull is the color of the inside of an almond shell, pale, faintly green-tinged, softened by verdigris blooms, she finds a piece of driftwood caught in the copper mesh cradle. She lifts it out, turns it in her fingers, and sets it gently on the catwalk to dry. Later, it will go into the hut to be added to the small pile of driftwood that becomes handles for new mops. Nothing is discarded. Nothing is thrown out. She brushes Almond's hull with the badger hair mop. She combs the tube worm rosettes into gentle whirls. She lowers a jar of algae through the porthole and watches it glow faint green as it descends. She sits back and listens to the hollow bong of the bell and the polite tick of shrimp against Almond's rivets and the soft creak of wet rope against wood. Then she rises and walks on. At Kelp, the fourth submersible, the paint is the softest ochre of them all, almost the color of pale honey with a little cream folded in. And long strands of true kelp have grown up around the mooring lines, so that Kelp herself is half hidden by her own green skirt. Ova parts the kelp gently with her hands, apologizing to nothing in particular for the small disturbance, and reaches beneath to lift the copper mesh cradle. It is heavy today, a good harvest of flakes. She tips them into her basket and lowers the cradle back into the amber water. She brushes Kelp's hull with slow, patient strokes. The badger hair bristles, part the fine green fur of algae, and beneath, the ochre paint gleams like the inside of a shell. She feels the cool weight of the porthole ring as she loosens it, and the smell of brine and warm copper rises up from within. She lowers a jar of iron-loving algae through, and the water flushes briefly green, and then settles. She listens. The bong of the mooring bell, the tick of shrimp, the creak of rope, the soft slap of small ripples against Kelp's flank. These are the sounds she has been listening to for many years. They have not grown less interesting. If anything, they have grown more so, as though every day they reveal a slightly finer shade of themselves. She walks on. At Weathervane, the paint is streaked in two shades, a warm rust orange along the top of the hull, and a paler buff along the belly. Ova likes Weathervane very much. She likes the way the two colors meet without a clear line, blurring softly like the horizon at dusk. She lifts the copper mesh cradle, brushes the hull with her badger hair mop, lowers the jar of algae, and sits back on her heels. There is no rush. There's no rush at all. Above the grotto, the sky has begun its slow shift toward evening. The sun shafts that come through the arch have grown longer, and they enter at a lower angle now, so that the wobbling light on the hulls has turned from lemon gold to something warmer, a deep butter, a soft copper. The water itself has turned a shade toward amber, and the ochre paints on the submersibles seem to glow from within, as though they had been storing up the day and were now, quietly, giving it back. Ova stands. She wipes her hands on her apron. She walks on to Sable. Sable's paint is the color of dark honey, the deepest ochre in the Marina, with rust blooms of true sienna along her lower ribs. Her copper mesh cradle carries mostly small brown flakes today, and Ova is pleased by how evenly they fall. She strokes the badger hair mop along Sable's flank and finds a soft cluster of tiny anemones that have opened their pale fingers in the amber light. She brushes carefully around them and lets them continue their unhurried breathing. She lowers a jar of algae through Sable's porthole. The jar glows faint green as it descends. She replaces the cover, sits back, and listens. The hollow bong of the mooring bell, the polite tick of shrimp against metal, the muted creak of wet rope on wood, and now, layered beneath, the very softest of sighs, the sigh of pressure equalizing in an old ballast tank somewhere across the grotto as the water finds its evening level. It is a slow, patient sound, more breath than voice, and it fits perfectly under the bell and the shrimp and the rope, as though the Marina were a small orchestra tuning itself for the night. Ova closes her eyes for a moment. She smiles. She rises. At Copperleaf, the 6th submersible, the paint has grown so thin in places that the true copper of the hull beneath has begun to show through. And where it shows through, it has bloomed into pale green verdigris in soft, leaf-shaped patches. This is the color that gave Copperleaf her name. Ova strokes the badger hair mop along her flank, and the verdigris leaves feel cool and slightly velvety under the bristles, as though they had grown a fur of their own. She lifts the copper mesh cradle. She lowers the jar of algae through the porthole. She listens. She walks on to Millet. Millet is the smallest of the submersibles, a round little vessel not much larger than a barrel, painted a pale, grainy yellow. She was once used to study the beds of tiny seagrasses, and her porthole is very small, and her ballast tank makes only the softest of sighs. Ova has to kneel very close to attend to her, and she does so with the same patience she has given to all the others. The badger hair mop strokes Millet's tiny hull. The copper mesh cradle receives its handful of pale flakes. The jar of algae glows faint green as it descends through the little porthole. Ova rests her hand on Millet's roof for a moment. She feels the sun-warmed metal through the water. She feels the slow rocking of the tide. Then she rises and walks on. At Owl, the 7th submersible, the ochre is nearly gray, a soft, cool ochre like the feathers of a barn owl's chest. Ova likes Owl very much. She likes the way her porthole is set slightly forward, so that Owl seems always to be looking a little ahead, patient and expectant. She lifts the copper mesh cradle. She strokes the badger hair mop. She lowers the jar of algae. She listens. The bell, the shrimp, the rope, the sigh of pressure in an old ballast tank, the soft ripple of the tide against the catwalk posts. All of it, layered, patient, quiet. She walks on. At Fern, the 8th, the paint is a pale, almost white ochre, the color of old snow at the edge of a mountain, the color, in fact, from which she takes her name. Her rust blooms are the palest rose. Her copper mesh cradle is nearly empty today, and Ova is pleased by the slowness of her shedding. She strokes Fern's hull with the badger hair mop. She lowers a jar of algae through the porthole. She sits back and listens. The evening is deepening. The sun shafts have turned from butter to old brass, and they fall at a low, soft angle across the curved hulls. The amber water has grown a little darker, richer, like tea that is steeped for a long while. Ova moves with the light, unhurried, folded into the rhythm she has always kept. At B, the 9th, the paint is a warm, cheerful ochre, the color of pollen on a honeybee's leg, and her rust blooms are small and bright. Ova strokes her hull. She lifts her cradle. She lowers her jar. She listens. At the 10th mooring, she comes to a submersible whose name she has not spoken yet, Chalcedon. It is a soft, translucent ochre, almost creamy where the paint is thickest, and along her ribs, the rust has bloomed into a color so soft it is nearly peach. Ova kneels beside her, and the badger hair mop moves in its slow whirls, and the copper mesh cradle receives its flakes, and the jar of algae glows faint green as it descends through the round brass porthole. She sits back. She listens. The bell, the shrimp, the rope, the sigh of ballast, the soft slap of water against Chalcedon's flank. She walks on. The 11th submersible is called Nectarine. Her paint is the warmest ochre of them all, a full round orange like the flesh of a ripe stone fruit, and her rust blooms have softened into a bloom that looks almost pink. Ova kneels at Nectarine's mooring and lifts the copper mesh cradle and finds a small piece of sea-tumbled glass among the flakes. She turns it in her fingers, pale amber, worn smooth, the color of the water itself. She sets it in a small pocket of her apron for the pile of found glass she keeps in the hut, and she brushes Nectarine's hull with the badger hair mop. She lowers a jar of iron-loving algae through Nectarine's porthole. The jar sinks, glowing faint green, and disappears into the darker green of the sub's interior. Ova replaces the porthole cover with a gentle turn of the wrist. She sits back on her heels. She rests her hands on her thighs. She breathes slowly. The round is nearly done. She gathers her basket and her mop and rises. The catwalk is warm beneath her bare feet. The wood has drunk the day and now gives it back gently. She turns and walks back along the catwalk, past Chalcedon, past bee, past fern, past owl, past millet, past copperleaf, past sable, past weathervane, past kelp, past almond, past pumice, and comes at last to Marigold, the oldest, the first, the one nearest the hut. She sets her basket down at the edge of the catwalk. She sets her mop against the rail. She takes off her apron and folds it neatly over the basket. Then she steps to the edge of the catwalk, where a small brass ladder leads down to Marigold's observation bubble, that low dome of thick glass that rises just above the surface of the water at the top of Marigold's hull. She climbs down slowly. The ladder is cool under her hands, worn smooth by many evenings of the same descent. 3 rungs down, 4, and she is standing on the small brass step that circles the observation bubble. She reaches up and lifts a small hatch in the top of the bubble and lowers herself through, feet first, into the round, warm space within. Inside the bubble, the light is deep amber. The glass is thick and slightly fogged with age, and it turns the low evening sun into a soft, honeyed glow. The bubble is just large enough to hold a low, cushioned bench, curved to follow the wall, upholstered in soft blue linen, worn pale by many years of use. Above the bench, a small oil lamp hangs in a brass gimbal, so that it will remain level however the sub rocks. Ova lights the lamp with a match from a small tin, and the flame catches quietly, and the amber light of the bubble is joined by a small, warm gold. Beside the bench, a shelf holds a stack of leather-bound books, each spine worn soft. These are her logbooks. She has kept one every year for many years, and each one is a record of colors. The shade of the water at day's end, the color of the sun shafts at noon, the rust bloom of each hull as it has changed through the seasons. They are not scientific books. They are more like books of small praise, small noticing, small keeping company with what changes slowly. She takes down the current logbook and sets it on her lap. She takes down a small tin of watercolor pans and a jar of clean water and a soft brush with a bamboo handle. She rests them on the bench beside her. The bubble rocks gently. The tide breathes in and out through the grotto, moving the moored submersibles in a slow, patient sway. Ova sways with Marigold, and Marigold sways with the water, and the water sways with the sea beyond the arch, and the sea, in its old, wide way, sways with the moon. She opens the logbook. The page for today is blank. She looks out through the fogged glass of the bubble, out at the amber water, at the honeyed light, at the soft ochre hulls of the moored submersibles. She looks for a long time. Then she dips the brush into the water. She touches it to the burnt sienna pan, and then to the raw umber, and then to the yellow ochre. And she mixes on the small palette a color that is warm and deep and steeped. She paints a small square on the page, and beside it she writes, in careful small letters, the color of the water at day's end. She writes the date. She writes nothing else. She sits with the page open in her lap for a while, watching the color dry. The oil lamp casts its small, warm gold across the paint, and the paint deepens slightly as it dries, settling into itself. Ova is patient with it. She does not close the book too soon. While the paint dries, she reaches into a small basket beside the bench and takes out her evening meal. It is a simple thing: a round of soft flatbread, a piece of pale cheese wrapped in a green leaf, a handful of small purple olives in a little clay bowl, a wedge of pear the color of honey. She sets them on a wooden board on her lap and eats slowly, tearing the flatbread into small pieces, folding cheese and olive and pear into each bite. She chews without hurry. She swallows without hurry. She takes small sips from a green ceramic cup filled with cool water from the well behind the hut. The flatbread tastes of warm grain and a little salt. The cheese is soft and gentle, tasting of the milk of goats that graze on the herbs above the cliff. The olives are firm and mild, faintly floral. The pear is sweet and tender, cool from the shaded pantry. She eats until she has had enough, which is not very much. She sets the wooden board aside. She wipes her fingers on a soft cloth. She sips her water. The bubble rocks gently. The tide breathes in and out. Somewhere in the grotto, the mooring bell touches its clapper and gives its hollow bong, and the note carries through the water and up into the bubble and settles into Ova's chest like a small round friend. Somewhere along a bronze rivet, shrimp tick their polite ceramic tick. Somewhere in a hull, a ballast tank sighs. Ova closes her eyes for a while. She listens. She breathes. She sways. When she opens her eyes again, the paint on the page has dried. She looks at it, the small, warm square of the water's color today, and she is satisfied. She closes the logbook gently. She sets it back on the shelf. She sets the watercolor tin and the water jar and the brush beside it. She wipes her hands on the soft cloth and folds the cloth and sets it on the bench. The light through the bubble has softened further. The sun shafts are almost gone now, and what remains is a dim, warm amber, like the inside of a lantern seen from far away. The oil lamp in its brass gimbal continues its small, quiet flame and casts its small, warm gold across the curved walls of the bubble. Ova takes down a soft, folded blanket from a hook on the wall. It is woven of pale wool the color of raw cream, with a single thin blue stripe along one edge. she unfolds it and settles it across her lap, and then draws it up to her shoulders, and then leans back against the curved wall of the bubble. The cushion is soft. The blanket is warm. The bubble rocks gently in the tide. She listens. The hollow bong of the mooring bell reaches her through the water and the glass. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. The polite tick of shrimp against the bronze rivets sounds very close, almost as though the shrimp were tick-tick-ticking just beneath her seat. The soft sigh of pressure in an old ballast tank breathes in the distance. The muted creak of wet rope on wood folds itself around the edges of these sounds. Above her, through the top of the bubble, she can see the arch of the grotto, framed against a sky that has turned the soft gray blue of evening. A single pale star has come out. It is not bright. It is not urgent. It is only there, patient, in its slow, round way. Below her, through the glass floor of the bubble, she can see the amber water and the pale sand of the grotto floor and the round shadows of the moored submersibles as they sway in the tide. Small silver fish flick between the hulls and settle beneath the catwalks and hover and flick again. She breathes in. She breathes out. She breathes in. She breathes out. And you, who have followed her all this way, who have walked with her along the catwalks and watched her kneel at each mooring and heard the small sounds of the Marina layered like an old, quiet song, you may now let yourself rest as well. Let your breath find the same slow rhythm as hers. In and out. In and out. Feel the softness of the blanket. Feel the warmth of the cushion. Feel the slow rocking of the bubble as the tide breathes through the grotto. The bell bongs, hollow and round. The shrimp tick, polite and small. The rope creaks, muted and low. The ballast tank sighs, slow and soft. The oil lamp burns its small, warm gold. The amber water holds the ochre hulls. The sun shafts have gone, and in their place is only the deep amber quiet of evening in a sheltered place. Ova's eyes are heavy now. Her hands rest folded on the blanket. Her breath has grown slow. The bubble rocks. The tide breathes. The bell bongs. Nothing here is repaired, only accompanied. Nothing here is hurried, only kept company. The submersibles sway in their moorings. The copper mesh cradles rest against the ochre hulls. The badger hair mop leans against the rail. The basket sits on the catwalk. The apron is folded neatly. The logbook rests on its shelf, its page of today's color drying into permanence. Nothing is undone. Nothing is unfinished. Everything that needed doing today has been done, slowly and well. You may let go now. You may let the day go. You may let the small held things loosen and drift. The bell, the shrimp, the rope, the sigh, the amber light, the ochre hulls, the warm copper smell. Ova's breath slows. Your breath slows. The bubble rocks. The tide breathes. The bell bongs. There's nothing you need to hold. There's nothing you need to keep. There's nothing you need to remember. The Marina will still be here in the morning. The submersibles will still be moored in the amber water. The rust will still be blooming into soft mineral colors on the curved hulls. Ova will wake and make her tea and begin her day's round. But that is for another time. That is for another quiet. For now, there's only this: the bell, the shrimp, the rope, the sigh. For now, there's only the soft rocking, only the amber, only the warm. Rest here as long as you like. The bubble will hold you. The tide will hold the bubble. The sea will hold the tide. The old wide moon will hold the sea. Everything beneath you is already doing its work. You do not have to hold anything up. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw soften. Let the small muscles behind your eyes soften. The bell bongs, quieter now. The shrimp tick, quieter now. The rope creaks, quieter now. The oil lamp burns low. The amber deepens. The bubble sways. Ova sleeps. The submersibles sleep in their moorings. The ochre paints sleep in their slow return to the sea. The rust blooms sleep in their patient colors. And you may sleep too. The bell, the tide, the soft amber. The bell, the tide, the soft amber. Sleep now. Sleep well. Sleep long. The Marina keeps its quiet watch. The moon keeps its old, slow round. The sea keeps everything patient and wide. Sleep, sleep, sleep. The bell bongs once, far away. Or perhaps it is only the memory of the bell. The two have grown difficult to tell apart, and there's no need to tell them apart. Not here, not now. The amber light continues its slow work. It moves across the curved wall of the bubble, the way honey moves across the inside of a warm jar, without hurry, without decision, simply following the shape of the thing that holds it. You watch it, or you do not watch it. Your eyes have grown soft. The distinction between watching and not watching has grown soft as well. Somewhere below, in the deeper amber, a small fish turns in its sleep. Its scales catch a bit of lamplight and send it back, a tiny, slow flash, and then the fish is still again. The tide accepts the flash. The tide accepts everything. The rope holding the bubble to its mooring gives one long, slow creak, a settling sound, a sound like an old house easing into its own weight after a long day of holding itself upright. The rope has done this for many years. It knows how. You feel the sway. You feel the small lift and the small fall. You feel the way the bubble rests inside the water, the way a thought rests inside the mind. Held, but not gripped. Present, but not pressing. Ova has curled onto her side in her small cot near the porthole. Her breathing is slow and even. One of her hands rests near her cheek, the fingers slightly curled, the way hands rest when the person they belong to has finally set down every small thing they were carrying. She will sleep for many hours. She has earned many hours. The oil lamp gutters, considers going out, and then decides to keep burning, softer than before. The flame is the size of a cupped moth now. It casts almost no shadow. It only warms the amber, deepens it, the way a single low note deepens a long, slow piece of music. Outside the bubble, the Marina holds its long quiet. The ochre hulls of the submersibles rest at their moorings. Their portholes are dark. Their small brass fittings have cooled. The rust blooms on their sides have gone the color of dried leaves, the color of tea steeped a long time, the color of the last light before evening becomes night. The shrimp are quieter now. They still tick now and then, in the crevices where the pilings meet the water, but the ticking has spaced itself out. One tick, then a long, soft nothing, then another tick farther away. They are settling into their own small, sleeping rhythms, the way small creatures do when the tide has grown gentle and the moon has grown patient. The moon, the old, wide moon. It sits somewhere above the water, above the Marina, above the whole slow harbor, and its light comes down through the amber in long, soft threads. The threads do not hurry. They do not compete with the lamp. They add themselves to the lamp quietly, the way a second voice adds itself to a hummed tune, and the amber grows richer for it. You are held by all of this. You do not have to do any of the holding. The bubble holds you. The water holds the bubble. The pilings hold the water in their patient wooden way. The seabed holds the pilings. The old stone bones of the coast hold the seabed. And the moon, unhurried, holds the whole shape of the tide from above. There's a great long chain of holding, and you rest inside the last soft link. Your breath has grown longer. The in-breath arrives when it wishes. The out-breath leaves when it is ready. There is no counting. There is no shaping. The breath knows its own slow work, and it is doing it quietly on your behalf while you rest. Somewhere in the deeper part of the marina, a length of kelp lifts and settles against a hull. A soft brushing sound, muffled by water, felt more than heard. The kelp is doing what kelp does. It is swaying. It is being green in the amber light. It is asking nothing of anyone. The bell bongs again, very far. So far, it might belong to a different marina, a different harbor, a different night entirely. But the sound arrives here just the same, softened by all the distance, and it settles into the bubble like a small round stone dropping gently into a bowl of warm water. Bong. Then quiet. Then, a long while later, another bong, quieter still. The old copper smell has thinned. It has become the memory of a smell, rather than the smell itself. But the warmth remains, the warmth of the amber, the warmth of the lamp, the warmth of the small enclosed space where you rest. The warmth is patient. It does not ask to be noticed. It simply continues. If a thought comes, let it come. If a thought goes, let it go. Thoughts, tonight, are like the small fish below. They turn once in the amber, catch a bit of light, and then are still again. They do not need to be followed. They do not need to be answered. The tide accepts them, the way the tide accepts everything. The rope creaks. A small creak. A sound like a soft old word spoken in sleep. The bubble sways. A small sway. The kind of sway a cradle makes when the hand that rocked it has grown still, and the cradle continues on its own remembered motion. Ova sighs in her sleep. A small, contented sigh. Her hand shifts a little on the pillow, and then is still. The lamp softens further. The amber deepens further. The whole bubble has become the color of tea held up to a low sun, the color of honey in a wooden spoon, the color of an afternoon remembered from long ago, when nothing was required of you and nothing was expected. You are inside that color now. You are inside that afternoon. You are inside that patient, wide, held quiet. There's nothing that needs your attention. There's nothing that needs your care. The marina is tending to itself. The tide is tending to the marina. The moon is tending to the tide. And something older and quieter than the moon is tending to all of it, patient beyond any measure you could hold in your mind. Let that older quiet hold you now. Let it take the small weight of the day. Let it take the small weight of the week. Let it take the small weight of anything you have been carrying without knowing you were carrying it. Your shoulders soften. Your jaw softens. The small place between your eyebrows softens. The small muscles at the corners of your mouth soften. Your hands, wherever they rest, grow warm and heavy and content. The bell, the tide, the soft amber, the bell, the tide, the soft amber, a small breath moves through the bubble. Not wind, not really. Only the slow exchange of warmth between the lamp and the wall, between the wall and the water beyond. The breath touches your face like the memory of someone's hand smoothing your hair when you were small. It stays a moment and then moves on, and the bubble is still again. Time in the Marina has become very loose. Minutes may be passing. Hours may be passing. It is difficult to say, and there is no one asking. The lamp does not keep time. The bell does not keep time. The rope does not keep time. They keep something older than time. A slow rhythm that measures itself in tides and moons, and the patient blooming of rust into soft mineral colors. You are inside that rhythm now. You are one of its slow measures. Your breath is one of its long, soft notes. Somewhere, a small bit of ochre paint releases itself from a hull and drifts down through the amber water. It turns as it goes, catching the lamplight, becoming for a moment a small floating coin of warm color. Then it settles gently onto the soft floor of the Marina, where all the ochre paints eventually go, and where they wait, patient, for the sea to do its long, slow work of returning them. The sea is very good at returning things. It does not hurry. It does not forget. It only continues, tide by tide, moon by moon, taking each thing softly into itself and giving it back in a form the thing could not have imagined. There is comfort in that. There's a wide, slow comfort in knowing that everything, eventually, is taken softly and given back softly, and that nothing, in the end, is asked to hold itself up forever. You are not asked to hold yourself up forever. You are not asked to hold yourself up tonight. The bubble is holding you. The water is holding the bubble. The moon is holding the water. And you may let go, small piece by small piece, into all of that holding. Let go of the day. Let go of the small things you did and the small things you did not do. Let the Marina take them. Let the tide take them. The tide is very good at taking. The tide has taken far heavier things than yours and returned them lighter and asked nothing in exchange. Let go of tomorrow too, for a little while. Tomorrow will still be there when you need it. Tomorrow will still have its own quiet Marina, its own small lamp, its own patient rope. You do not have to carry tomorrow into tonight. Tonight is enough on its own, and tonight is holding you. The bell bongs, softer than a whisper, so soft you may only feel it, a small round pressure against the amber. Then it is gone, and the tide fills the place where it was, and the tide is enough. Ova has turned onto her back. Her breathing is deep and slow. The small hollow between her collarbones rises and falls in time with the sway of the bubble, and the sway of the bubble rises and falls in time with the tide, and the tide rises and falls in time with the moon, and the moon simply is, patient and wide, in the long dark above. You breathe with all of it, or more truly, all of it breathes with you. The distinction has become soft. It is not important. It is only warm. The oil lamp is a small orange coin now, resting inside its brass holder. It gives just enough light to keep the amber alive. It gives just enough light to hold the shape of the bubble in its warm round. It asks nothing more of itself, and it is enough. The shrimp have gone quiet. The last tick was a long while ago. They're folded into their small crevices, dreaming their small shrimp dreams, and the water around them has grown still. The rope is quiet. The rope has made all the creaks it needed to make. It rests now against the mooring, patient, doing its slow work of holding without effort, the way a well-set stone holds without effort, because the shape of it is right, because the place of it is right, because it has been doing this for a long time and knows how. You are like the rope now. You have made all the small movements you needed to make. You rest now, without effort, held in your right place by the slow, patient shapes around you. The bell, the tide, the soft amber. Your breath grows slower. Your body grows heavier. The bubble grows dimmer, or perhaps only more familiar, more inward, more like the inside of a warm, closed eye. Somewhere in the deep, patient dark of the marina, something very small and very content is turning in its sleep. A snail, perhaps. A small, pale fish. A tiny dreaming crab dreams beneath a piling. You do not need to know. It is enough that they are there, small and content, tending to their own small warmth, adding themselves to the wide, slow quiet of the whole. You are one of them tonight. You are one of the small warm things folded into the marina. You are one of the small breaths inside the wide breath of the tide. You are one of the small quiets inside the wide quiet of the moon. There is nothing to hold. There is nothing to keep. There is nothing to remember. The bell bongs, so far away now that it may be no more than a soft round thought in the amber. It bongs, and the bong fades, and the fading is as gentle as the bong. The tide breathes, the bubble sways, the lamp warms, Ova sleeps, the submersibles sleep at their moorings, the rust sleeps in its patient colors, the ochre paints sleep in their slow return to the sea, and you sleep, or nearly sleep, or drift in the warm place between, which is its own kind of rest, its own kind of soft amber. Let the drifting take you. Let the amber take you. Let the bell, when it comes, come from very far, and let it go, when it goes, into an even farther place. Let the tide be the only shape you feel. Let the sway be the only movement you know. The bubble holds. The water holds. The moon holds. The old, wide, quiet holds. You are inside all of it. You are inside all of it. You are inside all of it. The lamp softens once more. The amber deepens once more. The sway grows smaller and smaller until it is only the softest breath of motion, only the memory of a cradle, only the last slow measure of a long, slow song. You may sleep now. You may sleep long. You may sleep well. The marina keeps its watch. The moon keeps its round. The sea keeps everything. Nothing will be lost. Nothing will be asked. Nothing will be hurried. Only the tide. Only the bell. Only the soft amber. Only the sway. Only the warm. Only the slow. Rest. Rest, small and held inside the wide holding. Rest, warm and quiet, inside the wide quiet. The bell bongs, one last soft time. From a place so far, it is almost only the memory of a place. The tide answers, one long soft breath. From a place so wide, it is almost only the memory of width. The amber holds one last patient glow. From a place so warm, it is almost only the memory of warmth. And you are already sleeping, or nearly, or drifting into the place before sleeping, where the world grows kind, and the edges grow soft, and the small, tired parts of you finally let go. Let them let go. Let all of them let go. The marina will hold what they set down. The tide will carry it, patient and slow, into the wide place where nothing is ever lost, only softened, only returned. The bubble sways once, then rests, then sways once more, so softly it is nearly still. then rests again. The lamp gives one last small warm breath of light, and then settles into its lowest glow, the color of a banked ember, the color of a held hand, the color of the last kind word before sleep. Ova breathes, deep and slow. The rope is silent. The shrimp are silent. The bell is silent. The tide is only the softest whisper against the hulls, the softest whisper against the pilings, the softest whisper against the curved wall of the bubble. And you are inside all of it. Inside the amber, inside the sway, inside the warm. Sleep now. Sleep now, little one, little traveler, little breath inside the wide breath. Sleep now, held and held and held. The bell, the tide, the soft amber. The bell, the tide, the soft amber. The bell, the tide, the soft amber. Sleep, sleep, sleep well. Sleep long, sleep deep. The Marina holds you. The moon holds the Marina. The old, wide quiet holds them all. And so, gently, you are held. Gently, gently, gently. Good night. Good night. Good night.